Você que está ouvindo esse podcast, o que acha de uma empresa que sempre trabalha para trazer impacto positivo? Assim é o Google. Como? A Duda da Orbi é um exemplo disso. Ela usa a inteligência artificial para ajudar pessoas a recuperarem seus movimentos. É a tecnologia mais útil na vida das pessoas. E tem o Jefferson da Tributei, que usa inteligência artificial para facilitar o dia a dia das empresas. Eles e milhares de empreendedores geraram mais de 188 bilhões com as plataformas do Google. Tem que ser bom para todo mundo.
Back with another episode of Keeping Current with Kansas City. Thad Bell from the KC Soccer Journal. With me, Daniel Sperry from the KC Star. How are you, sir?
I am grand on this wonderful Monday. You caught me right as I was going to take a swig.
That might make you even grander. All right, we've settled down a little bit. We've had a lot of cups and tournaments and all these other things going on this summer between multiple different teams, but the Summer Cup is well, I was gonna say done. It's not done. There's one more game in the fall to finish up the Summer Cup. The Women's Cup version that was in Kansas City is done, and the Current won it, so that's a good thing. What stood out for you, man?
Well, I think the biggest thing that stood out for me in the whole thing was just I I think the difference just from watching all of the games, the difference in the style of play that the Current have and how it puts teams under pressure when they have the right players in there that can constantly put teams under pressure. And I think that was the big thing of like, I thought at times throughout the tournament they showed that they could really control a game and kill it with possession. They showed that they could do it kind of in quick moves with the goal against Atletico. That's one of the best goals I've seen them score all season long, really, with that one touch movement and ball movement and player movement. It was a thing of beauty. But there's also that came to, especially, I'll say this one takeaway, like Debinha and Temo were on the same page for the first time all season long, and it was like they were on the same page, but still a centimeter off. And like more reps means everyone else is screwed with those two, because I think that there is just so much more that they have to give than what we saw in that Atletico game. And I think it is going to be very difficult for teams if Bia gets thrown back into the mix with that group. I see there's a lot of really promising things that came out of that tournament, and it gave them an opportunity to grow some players in some areas and kind of, you know, get everybody together, kind of have Almuth play, have her play well, force AD to or really have a big game, and she had a really good game on the corner kicks in against Atletico. So like, there's a lot there that like, man, like that was what that tournament was. It was used perfectly to help bridge the gap from the Olympic break into the regular season, and I thought it couldn't have gone better for the Current. Not just in winning the trophy, but in how things went on the field.
Yeah, it was interesting. The opposing coach that just mentioned how good Deb was and how the league is going to be in trouble if she gets on even remotely back to what she was before. And I think she took a step towards that, a big step.
Yeah.
It was a thing of beauty. I do think early in the year between injuries and various things, it was hard to get everybody on even a remotely similar page, and they were still really dangerous. And
Mm.
now it's like I want to say you mentioned like at times they just killed by possession or they did all the right things and stuff in here and there. It seems like a team that could just turn it on and attack, and a team that could set back for a little bit. A team that like all knew where to go. And you often you hear coaches talk about, we all press together, we all move together, we do this, we do that. We wait for these triggers, we wait for those triggers. How many times did one, two, three current players press a couple of opponents who made a pass out of it, and then the right back, the left back, the D mid, another midfielder just picked the ball off and said thank you and went the other way because they knew where that ball had to go. There's
Yeah.
only so many places they could go with it.
Yeah, I think the organization was really impressive. And look, let's also take a grain of salt here. Two of the four teams were in preseason. The team from Africa was not, and the team from Africa was also mostly outmatched technicality wise, in terms of technical ability, throughout the tournament, and in their two opponents. And I think that um, the it makes it easier, right? If you're pressing
Yeah.
team that can't play it out of the back and can't play the ball and force them into a spot where that's the only way out, you're going to do what the Current did to the Mamelodi Sundowns. And similarly with Atletico, for a long period of time, their coach, in stark contrast to their men's team, that coach wants to have possession. He wants to have the ball. He wants to build up in a certain way. And they play on a more front foot and a more possession and left to right dominating the time on the ball and make a team tired. They couldn't do that against the Current. They packed it in. And so like the ability for the Current to force teams into ways that they didn't want to play. Some of it is the level of opponent, because they don't have it drilled into them yet to be able to play out that way, or are in preseason and maybe can't handle the type of pace. But I think that's the one thing that even Tatiana Pinto from Atletico Madrid players said after the game, as well as their head coach, they're so fast, so physical, and so technical too, that you really get put in a really difficult spot against them. And so like to see, as you said, the way they moved as one, as a pressing unit. Claire Hutton was incredible at picking off second balls all
Yep.
tournament long. That's an
It wasn't just
strong.
her though. Wasn't just her.
It wasn't just her. It was Lowe. It was Alana. It was Haley. It was whoever they had at left
Ellie
back, whether it
Wheeler.
be Ellie or Reagan or Izzy. Like everybody was doing their job. And Bailey Fife looked really good too, of course, in the
Yep.
midfield. She's looked good all year in the midfield, regardless. But like, I think there's just so much to be said for how well that team has like synced into a unit. At times this year, the gas was so far to the floor that at times I think players lost where they needed to be. Now it's so drilled into them that they know where they're supposed to be at. It's just impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Vlaco's always been a great coach, and I've always felt like he's a coach that just every incrementally makes a team better every day. I mean, Potter used to say, "Oh, 1% better every day," and it was almost a meme and a joke. That he wasn't joking, but it just was almost funny because it would say it every time. But Vlaco really is kind of one of those guys who I think just continuously fine tunes a team into being a little bit better, and players become better players.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think that's one thing too that is just, as you've said about Vlaco teams in the past, sometimes they maybe start off slow and they start to gel, and they get hot at the right time. I think there's a benefit to not just being hot at the right time, but almost in a way being perfected for the right time of the season,
Yes.
which seems like they already have a engine running at such a high level. And to have it fine-tuned and ready for race day in the playoffs kind of seems like how this is going, right? Like you've done. I'm no big NASCAR guy, right? But you pay attention. You want to get your times in the polls. You want to get yourself in a good spot, for a good starting spot, a good place at the time that the race starts. And then when the race starts, you want your car to work perfectly, and you want your team to be well drilled on everything, on the decisions that they have to make, when things break down on the track, when the pit crew has to be at their best in terms of like helping make sure that everybody is prepared for the moment that they got to make the changes. They select to do the right changes to the car, and keep it ensuring that it's running at the right speed, the timing of when you refuel and when you don't. There's a science and a method to the madness of all of that, as much as people think it's just turning left. And I am not a huge NASCAR person in my own right, but like that's like what it seems like the trajectory that Vlaco's got this team on, that if we get to race day, if we get to, I say we as in like that's just speaking of maybe what's in his mind, right? I don't think he's thinking about NASCAR, that's for sure. But
No.
like, and if he's listening to this pod, maybe he is now. I put this shot into his mind, but it's one of those of like when you get to race day, and you're ready for everything to run perfect and you've done all the work so that the car runs as smooth as possible race for you to get the flag at the end. And that's the way the playoffs are going to be. And if you can get there, great.
Sometime in the near future, we'll have to ask him if he's ever thought of his team you know, related to a NASCAR or a race team. So we'll have to ask him that.
Get him on the pod.
All right. So in the summer window, brought in Alana Cook. We've talked about her and how good she can be and getting her back to where her best was. I've been impressed with her. I mean, she's fit in really well. I mean, she's done. Again, we got to take into consideration the competition, but not all those games were against the Sundowns. But I mean, it's Summer Cup games and this. She's played well and fit in really well, and I think going to be just she's going to be the starting center back for the rest of the season, barring injuries or something else.
Yeah, for sure.
We'd already talked about Dabinia
Correct.
and how she's come into form, and how she's syncing up with Timwa. Is there
Correct.
anybody else that has really stood out that, like, in this summer window, kind of deserves a little extra mention? I thought Cooper's been good.
Yeah, that was where my mind went to immediately was Michelle. I know she didn't quite get on the score sheet, but I thought her physical fight, like her defense has been really good. She's gonna get fouls. She's gonna end up getting yellow cards too for some of those
Yep.
fouls. But she is a very physical player and a very difficult player for people to um handle. uh she's difficult for people to handle when you get 1v1. I think she's figuring out how to take players on 1v1. I also think she's gotten a little bit more clinical in the box. We even saw some of that in the Summer Cup itself, but like um over this whole summer, I think we've really seen her grow comfortable in that right wing role as much as it's been a constant progression, but now to the point of where like I see her as the right winger, and think I don't know who replaces her there, to be honest. I don't.
No. Another thing that was good is that we saw Nichelle Prince come back from the Olympics and get some time in. Not a ton, but
Mhm.
we've only seen her very limited earlier in the year before she got injured and then went off to play for Canada.
Mhm.
So what'd you see from her?
I thought she was good in the minutes. I thought she looked good on the wing. I personally am curious to see like if Vlaco ever uses her at the nine, just because she was essentially playing as the nine for Canada a lot of the times during the Olympics. I know Vanessa Giles came on and scored like pretty much every goal that Canada scored in the Olympics, practically. But at the same time, I think um, Nichelle Prince had a lot of work in the buildup and a lot of chance creation there. It's kind of a false nine-ish, if you will, underneath Haidema and Leon. So I'd be curious to see how she looks centrally. I know at the moment, Bia Zanerato, how long will she be? How much longer will she be out? When will she be back? Is that, in a couple of weeks? Is that in a month or so? I think there's some opportunities to see Nichelle at striker, maybe, just to try it out. But I think, she was dangerous enough in the games that she got into. I think she's in a place now where she's healthy enough. She's got a good run of form. And as long as they can keep her healthy, she's going to be a valuable player to have off the bench, because I think she puts in good service and she can provide a little bit of danger on that cut in and shoot. We saw a couple of times. I think one of the shots just went wide in the match against Mamelodi, but I thought, she had the right ideas with the ball. She's a player too who, like Michelle, knows how to serve the ball in from the sides and from the cut into the end line and play the ball, play that cutback or all that stuff. So I think she's got that game to her that she'll be comfortable as a wing, and even off the bench or in a spot start for somebody who goes down. You need to rest somebody who maybe has got a little bit of a knock, or even as a super sub off the bench, just to kind of mix things up. I think it's nice to see her healthy and
Absolutely.
available for selection for once too.
Right. And I felt like she wasn't as in sync as the rest of the players, just because I think between injuries and Olympic duty, she hasn't had as much practice time. but it felt like it wasn't that far off also. I mean, again, only got to see her for the limited amount of minutes, and the way I have to see games sometimes I don't see everything, but it felt like she was kind of getting close. Is that fair?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. I think we've kind of run through the like players that have stood out or that really needed mentioning. Is there anybody else that jumps out there? Well, we didn't really talk about Schulte in this one either, but
Yeah, I
Schultz,
thought
not Schulte, Schultz.
Schultz. I know Schulte is the American boy in Columbus. I thought Almuth was pretty good. Um, I think I think she wasn't really tested enough in terms of a shot stopping standpoint.
Made one
Um,
big save.
one big save, but even then, it was one of those. It's a shot from distance. She was kind of off of her line because she didn't really need to do a whole lot in the game, and kind of almost got caught, but just handled it really well. Was able to parry it over the bar. The one thing that stuck out to me, I think, from opposed to AD, and I'd be curious to see this in the like. I would love to see her in an NWSL match to like see
Yes.
what does she do different when she's faced with more shots, when she's going to be under more pressure. How does she command the box on the corners? We can talk about the corners with AD just after this, but at the same time, the one thing that stood out to me from Schultz was her ball distribution. I think there was one pass that was misplayed the whole night. Every single thing out to the like. There's a lot of times where AD will make the pass on the ground to the center back, and the center back will play to the right back, and they'll play it up to the wing, or they'll play it inside and go out to the wing. Schultz possesses the ability to literally ping it across field and hit the striker. She could probably like. There's a great chance that if she started games, that you could put her in for an assist to Temwa. Like no joke. Like I think her ball distribution out of the back was incredible. You and I both were there. We were talking to a certain Kansas City Current player who we will not name for privacy's sake, but we asked who is the best, which goalkeeper would be the most likely to play on the field.
Right.
And we were told, quote, Alma is nice with her feet. And we saw that very quickly on Wednesday night. And I thought that was uh, impressive in just the distribution, her ability to ping passes, her ability to break lines with some of this stuff. I think that's one thing that really stood out. And AD has improved significantly in her ability to play the ball out of the back, even from when I started covering this team in 2022. I know that was something that, you know, Lloyd Yaxley tried to get going with her and was working on when he came aboard as the goalkeeper coach. I think she's only gotten better really from there. I know last year she had a rough time for a while, but she still was making some really good passes there. This year, I think she's been much cleaner with her feet than she has been at any point over the last 2 years. But at the same time, um, I think Almuth possesses like next level ball playing ability out of the goalkeeper, which shouldn't surprise you out of the German program,
Right.
considering the goalkeepers that they have on the men's and the women's side over their history. But I thought that was one thing that just really stuck out to me, and I'd be curious to see her ability to command a box in an NWSL match.
Yeah. Again, players being able to play that long ball or that switch sides or all those different things that players would need to be able to do. It just adds options for Vlaco to game plan differently or make adjustments in game for what the opponent is doing. So be it AD or Almuth, Schultz, or Alana or Stina or the outside backs, whoever's doing it, it gives them just that much more option to have something slightly different to do against that opponent.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like he's been slowly weeding out the weaknesses by who he's brought in. Huh. Wonder how that would happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Sounds like a team that has some ambition. Maybe it is trying to do things and get better.
And
Shocking.
is having an identity. Not an identity crisis that those teams had a couple years ago, but has an identity of what they want to be.
For real. For real.
All right. Tell you what. Officially, we're going to take a break so that we can throw a commercial in, and hopefully, I can make 2 cents this month. And we will come back right after that. And we're back. All right. We've talked about the Summer Cup, the Women's Cup. Again, kudos to the team for winning the Women's Cup. It may not be the most prestigious cup in the world, but it is a cup. It is a win. It's a precedent for the team. Do you feel like it's something that this team needed to build for the future?
Yes and no. Um, I'll say this. I think you don't need the trophy to keep working for the future, right? Like,
No.
and I mean this kindly. The Gotham team that won last year uh, had never won anything before. That Gotham team was absolute garbage the year before, and may a few players on that team had some like legitimate winning experience in their times as pros. Um, but like as a club, as a team itself, learning how to win is a difficult thing. And the current, I'll be dead honest, there's very few actual NWSL champions on there outside of the former North Carolina group and AD French. Um, there's there like winning is a difficult thing.
Right.
And learning how, I'll take that back. I should note, of course, Desi Scott has won the NWSL championship a couple of times. But like there's something to be said for like learning how to win. And I think like you got the lead, learning how to manage that game, see it out, create chances when you had them, but not put yourself in danger against Atletico until the end, where they had the barrage of corner kicks and being able to survive that. You learn how to win, uh, and learning how to win by in a scenario like that, I think really does help prepare you for it. I don't think they absolutely needed it, but for it to happen this way is not a bad thing either, right? Like this is what you would hope out of a tournament like this, right?
Yeah, and needed is probably not an exact word that I should have used, but I think it was a big step to do this because there are a lot of players who haven't won a NWSL championship or at least not in a while, and it just shows confidence in the team to do that. It builds confidence that they can do it, and again, it's not the requirement to do it to win to be able to move on, but it was a step. And again, it's in the long term, it's like a minor step. If they go on to win the NWSL championship, it's a minor step. This didn't really, it'll be like, okay, there's a nicer first trophy, but it's the next thing that they do. And they keep showing that, uh, Vlaco talks about, trophies are, good and they celebrate them, but it's the next game, it's the next game, it's the next game, and staying humble and all those other good things. And I feel he believes that. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, I would say so. I think too of like this, like I said earlier, like let's take the tournament with a grain of salt, right?
Right.
Um, they didn't get to face Kobe, who was very closely, nearly to me, they were very close to being the second best team. Like they tied 1-1 with Atletico. They lose in penalty kicks. Um, I thought like I thought that they were a very good team, and watching the way that they played, some of the link up and the one touch passing that they had through the middle against Mamelodi on Saturday was very, very impressive to me. So like to see the way that they were playing, like that, those are two very good teams. The current played Mamelodi, they played Atletico. I would have been interested to see them play Kobe just because Kobe does some different things and they're very, very, very technical in their abilities and kind of shifty and difficult. But like I would have been like this is those the two best teams were in preseason for themselves. Like Atletico's manager was like, this is literally the third game this whole year that we've played.
Right.
And we've got a bunch of new signings that we've got to try and get integrated, which made sense. So like to me, I think like you have to take it with a grain of salt. This tournament means very little in the grand scheme of things. Like the Summer Cup title to me probably means more than this. Winning the Shield means way more than this. Winning NWSL Championship means way, 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 way more than this. It does mean more than the Desert Cup, Diamond Cup, whoever threw out that idea on Twitter. But I do think like there's something to be said for just the ability to use it in the way that they did in terms of experience, in terms of they put out an A1 lineup for the final and took it like it was a final, I would think. And they came out on the right side and learned how to do it.
Oh, and Madrid also wanted to win that game. They were not like just throwing out.
No, yeah. No,
They were not
that
throwing
was a
out
very good
scrubs
team.
and half-assing it. They wanted to win that game. You could tell by the physical play. They played really well. And again, their keeper, I kept them in it. When they played Kobe, and they went to penalties, their keeper stopped at 3 shots and
She did the
just
Team Amelia.
yeah,
It was a
just shut them
3-0
down.
blank. It was
Yeah,
incredible. Absolutely incredible.
she's really, really good. I'm
And she
very,
was
very
their
impressed with
captain.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. She was very, very impressed with Kansas City, just saying.
Are you talking a future move there?
I don't know. She just told me that she was very envious of everything that we've got going on here in Kansas City. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think all of the players and coaches were envious of that to at least a certain extent. I mean, and I don't blame them. It's
No.
not a lot of places that have a stadium built for a professional women's soccer team, obviously.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, I know, right? The whole first claims that we have.
Yeah.
I'll say this like it just to kind of wrap up the Summer Cup and or not the Summer Cup, but the Women's Cup in a way. It was really interesting to hear all the managers come away from this and talk about investment in the seriousness of investment in the women's game in their own leagues, their own countries. And even the Mamelodi players are saying, like, we need to be tested more. The
Right.
Mamelodi coach saying we needed to be tested more because we come here, we don't score a single goal. I don't like that. I don't like how that reflects on us. But in the end, we dominate our entire continent.
Yeah.
We don't face anything like this. And for if a Club World Cup happens, we want to be ready for that because we will be representing our our continent, right? So like to go, we want to show well for ourselves. We've got to do something to help create more competition. And the Atletico managers talking about the facilities and the ability to train players and have them at a healthy level, that there are players that see sporting stuff and say that no teams got that in Europe, let alone what the NWSL has compared to or what the current have compared to the rest of the NWSL and to the rest of the women's game worldwide. So like I think the Kobe manager said the same thing too. Like the investment is is so impactful and how it prepares these players to perform at such a high level. And that is it was a big takeaway of mine for them to come here, hear that, see that, and be already shouting at people back home about like, look what they're doing. We've got to mirror this.
Yeah. Two quick notes before we're going to take another quick break in a moment just to switch out our recordings. But two quick notes. I would love to watch the Sundowns actually play in their league because they were very fun to watch and what they were
Yes.
doing. Skill. They have nicknames of the Brazilians and Baiana, and whatever else. I mean, they had like 5 different nicknames. They looked very entertaining, and I would love to watch them play in their league and see how they do. I mean, I know they're one of the best over there by far, but I want to see them play. So if anybody knows a good way to like watch them play, send me a link, hopefully free. And then the other funniest note was after the game the other night, after the presser, Vlaco and Lowe walked off to go to the locker room, and a couple of us are standing around, and the trophy's still sitting there. And
Yeah,
somebody's like,
they lost.
somebody wanted to pick it up, and I'm like, no, you didn't earn that, right? But we stood there kind of like giving each other a hard time for a couple minutes, and all of a sudden, Lowe comes bursting out of the locker room. I forgot this, grabbed it, and went running back out. So it was just hilarious at the moment.
Yeah. I did see there was a very good, we hear all the thing about trophy wives, right? The
Yeah.
dumb common trope. I did enjoy the current social media post of all the trophy husbands, of all
Yeah.
of the husbands of the players holding onto the trophy. Very good gag. I thought that was really cool. Especially it's you see Roger, I've seen Desi's boyfriend there. The I wouldn't say the wags, but the husbands, the significant others of and even the partners of all of the teams here. Impressive to see as a whole. Ran into AD and AD's partner Andrea and Kamari in the hallway in the press box at halftime, and Kamari was already in the PJs, and she was still out on the field stomping around with the trophy and the confetti and having a blast at full time. So just cool to see all of that afterwards.
And some fun support from a group of the other type of football players were there that night. Some minority owners, Mahomes or something like that. Yeah. Anyway,
Or that guy who's, dating just the biggest pop star in the world.
yeah, yeah.
No big
I
deal.
keep looking for that other person to show up, but I just think that'll be too much of a show. All right. We will be back in a moment. Back again, segment 3, I think. We've talked about cups, we've talked about how players did, but now we got to go to the other side of this. There's been new additional player signings besides Schultz and Alana Cook, the trade for her. So there's been new movement since we last talked. New player was signed, Jericho.
Mhm.
Can you say her old name?
No, because I don't have it in front of me, so no. If I had it in front of me, yes, but it's something like Monalina Adam Jericho, am I like something like that?
It is something like that, and I
But
apologize. I don't have it pulled up in front of me either. I just kind of have my notes. But what do we know about Jericho?
not a ton. And
Not a
this
ton.
is exactly okay, it's Moana Lima, not Moana Lina, Moana Lima Adam Jericho. M, not M. Um, look, we don't know a ton. We didn't know a ton about Temwa either, and Temwa's been phenomenal. So
Right.
is she going to be Temwa? I don't think so. I don't know about that. Like that's hard to say. Um, I'm interested though. Uh, some of the things that I've heard about her are interesting. I've told she like I mean, seeing her in person, she was there this weekend at the game. At one point, I did pass her in the hallway. She is on the shorter side. She's not as like physically imposing as Temwa is. Like Temwa has the pace and the size, on top of the technical ability and everything else. I'm told Jericho is a little bit more like speedy in how she like moves around the pitch. She's got a lot of lateral quickness, is very good with the ball at her feet, very um, keeps close control of it, very good dribbler. Of course, you have to like take the competition level into account. Um, but like she is putting up pretty good numbers in her time in Turkey. I think in the last season she scored 23 goals. I don't know how many. That's a lot of goals, um, regardless. So I think there's, and to me, she's been kind of described as a more of a direct replacement for Lavoisier, aka a 9 or 10 type of a player, someone who can drop in the hole and be a 10, someone who can be a number 9. Um, Size wise, I want to say like as walking passer, she was somewhere between like she wasn't as short as Dabinia and low, but she wasn't very tall either.
So
So
not physically imposing, but that obviously is not going to be her game. She's not
no,
a she's
no,
not a Bia. She's not a
she seems to be a very more a much more crafty ball carrier type of player, um, in that role, than Temwa is. Temwa is crafty, but Temwa can run right through you too.
yeah.
Um, I don't know that Jericho will be able to do that.
No, I've heard the same thing. She's kind of the replacement for Lavoisier when they knew Lavoisier was leaving or wanting to leave, and that was somebody that they've had an eye on and made the deal happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing her and seeing what she does in practice and then eventually in games.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Very interested in just like it was the whole thing with Temwa. It's like, look, if her ability translates to the NWSL in any way, shape, or form, uh, we're going to be very, very impressed. And I feel the same way here. Um, and let's take this too. The Current have been really lucky. A majority of their signings have been home runs under this Vlaco Ananovsky era.
Yeah.
Maybe Sophie Braun, I don't know if that has worked out the way anybody had wanted it to, considering she's on loan now. The Hope Heisey draft pick and the other goalkeeper, whose name I've completely forgotten about at this point, that they drafted. Like those two, just like I, sometimes players don't work out, right?
Right.
So like the expectation that every signing will just be amazing and perfect, I think is a little far-fetched.
Well,
But I
don't you want
also
to just put that pressure on Vlaco now and the team that's there now? Don't you want to just put that pressure on them that every single player is going to be a home run?
sure, why not? I mean, why we fans do it all the time, right? Like,
I know.
God forbid you get a signing wrong, right? It happens in sports. And please, I'm trying to do is like I am
Manage
excited.
expectations. No,
I am excited about this player, but I also think like until we actually see
right.
things happening. Temwa, it was a little bit, you saw some of the speed and her reaction time and stuff like that in training and the bits and pieces in preseason. You're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. First game, you were like, whoa. And then in San Diego, you were like, holy crap, this is going to be a really, really good player.
Yeah.
Like it's going to take a few appearances for like to kind of figure out where Jericho kind of fits into things. But I'm really curious to see what it looks like.
Yeah, me too. I've heard positive things, but again, like you said, you have to see them in games and see how they transition. And again, it's not going to be an easy team to have a lot of playing time on as long as everybody's healthy. So
I mean
it's
this
tough.
in no I mean this in no disrespect to this player, but I heard from staff, other people had said things about it, that Chardonnay Curran was having an incredible preseason last year and that she was a player to watch out for. That never panned out. That never happened. Sometimes players look great in training and they don't do it on the field. Sometimes it's vice versa. It is one of those things of like we will see when time comes. So I don't want to overhype, and I don't want to also
Be
like
cynical.
be cynical, and I also don't want to be in an area where just every signing is going to be a home run because it's just not going to be reality.
No, and of course I'm joking when we're saying we're trying to put that
Correct.
pressure on the team. Um,
Correct.
but there is a certain amount of expectation when you have brought in players like they've brought in. So there is a certain amount of expectation that you will
True.
continue to have success. But it would be very far-fetched to expect every single player to be that good on every single signing.
Correct.
Um, okay, Jericho in. We've said nice things about her, and we expect her to be good. We don't know how good, but we expect her to be good. On the flip side of that, Alexis Spanstra has been traded to Portland for 40,000 and 15 in allocation money, 25 in league transfer money. Um,
Yeah.
I saw
I
some
said
complaints.
monies.
Yeah,
I
just
said monies.
yeah, it's I saw some complaints that they should have gotten more for her because she's been a good player for him. It's just that she's hard. It's hard to break a lot of minutes when everybody's healthy, and she's been a player that I thought came on really strong at the end of last year and at the beginning of this year. She was looking pretty good. Got that one goal, got an assist, and I think it's just down to she needs playing time. She wants playing time, and one of the reasons they didn't get very much money for her is she's out of contract at the end of this season. So getting anything for her is probably bonus, right?
Yeah. And I don't want this to sound disrespectful to her, but in over 1,000 minutes of play, she has 5 goal contributions as a professional. Um, it's one of those things where like I you want to see her get more time. She's gotten more minutes this season than she did all of last season, and she hasn't been as productive. And like I think she's had some nice moments. But even the goal was really nice. Again, her shot from distance cannot be denied. But I think sometimes she either tries to set it up too much for herself, or she makes the wrong decision in the pass in the final third. There were a lot of I feel like I vividly remember a lot of times earlier on in the year where even if she had gotten an assist in one of those games, she there were multiple times where like if she picks out the right pass, it's a goal, and she didn't pick out the right pass. And like at some point, those decisions come with experience, and it's a point where you need playing time. And even it's the Lavoisier thing too. Vlaco said this about, with Lavoisier leaving, like on a lot of teams, Claire Lavoisier is going to be a player that's going to get a lot of minutes. And this is just a team that's really freaking deep at that position. And they have created a very, very deep team. And when you create a very deep team, good players may want more minutes and may want out. Or players may be seen as on the outside looking in to continue to improve the team, and continue to raise the level of competition. And so I think too, like when a coach comes in, a new person comes in, and don't take this as a sporting thing, but like it does take 3 to 4 windows to create the roster that you want.
Right.
And we are on window 2 of Vlaco's era, and there's still continued work to be done on the roster. And some of these players are players that were brought in under an old regime that just saw names and flashing lights and splashy things and put together whatever they could in hopes someone could coach them out of a paper bag full of groups that didn't fit together, like an entire center back core that was injured, or fullbacks that were all injured except for one. Like that. Those are like there are some roster composition issues left over from a previous era. And I don't mean this to make to say Alexa is a roster composition issue.
No.
But what happens is when you have new eyes on a roster and people that are in control over that roster from the previous regime, they want to build the roster in the way that they see fit. And that is just part of this process. And so I think you can see in the type of players that Vlaco picks that I don't think Alexa is necessarily that kind of player.
And again, I think she's a good player, and I don't want to fault her for not as many goal contributions this year, because when you're feeding everybody else and this, trying to keep up with a Timois running downfield, that's a little bit difficult. So it's not a lot of players are going to keep up with that group. I think she's a good player, and I think she'll fit in elsewhere and get some good playing time. And I wish her luck. She's really nice, and I wish a lot of good things for her. All right, so
hold on. Well, I have one thought.
Go ahead.
That I would like to just add to this. I am trying to pull up the stat though. If freaking FBref would load, there we go. Okay. So I just wanted to note, what team, like what was the, where is this stupid stat? It's gonna kill me. I'm sorry. You're gonna end up having to like cut this or do something.
No, I'm just gonna let it run so people can make fun of you for it.
Go ahead, make fun of me. Do it.
We give each other crap. It's part of how we do this.
Uh-huh.
And do you need me to like just do a soliloquy or just ramble? Do you want me to like stall for time? You finally got it. All right.
I've got it. Excuse you. Okay, so I think I was just looking at this. I would, in watching the Thorns this year at times, and especially in the newer direction Thorns, I would consider the Thorns to be a more possession-based team than the Kansas City Current, correct?
Fair, yeah.
Okay, so Alexis Spanisher's best moments came in under a Caroline Herblum's KC Barcelona, as she jokingly said one time, or unjokingly said, like they're like that. Her best moments came in that setup where it was get the ball ISO'd to a winger and let them cook. And in that possession setup, and it allowed for her to cut in, create shots. There was a lot of movement that she was doing inside. she has played almost explicitly on the left wing for the Current,
Yeah.
under Vlaco. And if we recall, the left side for the Current, you either play as the inside striker or you are like tucked way the heck out to the touchline, which is where she was a lot of the times. And a lot of her best moments came with her in cutting to the goal from the right hand side of the field. So I personally would be curious to see like if the Thorns do see her on the right, and have her in a little bit more possession uh, play, in terms of that. I think that's a good space for her to be in. And so I I will say this from what I gathered and from people that I have attempted to talk to. Um, I probably shouldn't say what I've been heard, what I've been told. So we'll just leave it at that. But this is a situation that I'll say this. This is a situation that I think she also sees as a good situation for her to go to. And in
Evan,
posting
yeah.
this before, and like before we had recorded on Instagram, she posted a photo of her and Sophia Smith in high school together, as like buddies, like holy. And it was Sophia Smith posting that she was happy to have, like, can you believe we're on the same freaking pro team? Like, to have Sophia Smith in your corner, happy to have you as a teammate, and to play with a best friend like that, and to be with the Thorns. It's a historic franchise. It's a phenomenal soccer city, and they have very, very good support from their fans.
Right.
And it is a very similar situation in terms of infrastructure and commitment from ownership and all that kind of stuff. She's in a good landing spot. This is not one where a player is, cast out and is in a bad situation, God forbid, sent to Utah, which has been a mess so far this year. Like, this is a good positive place for a player to be in.
Right. Portland has been a good team in the past. They've kind of turned a little bit of a corner, I believe, and improving right now. It's a place that she can go and be good.
Yeah,
I mean, I've thought this was a good fit for her, all along without diving too far into the weeds. But yes, I think because of a more possession team, the Current can be a possession team, but they are, they are a turn you over, transitioning, kill you
I'll
team
say this:
until they need to be a possession team.
it is a one percentage point better in terms of possession than the Current. It's not by much. However, they have much more touches in the middle third, in their defensive third, and in their defensive penalty area than the Kansas City Current do. The Kansas City Current have significantly more touches in the attacking third and the attacking penalty area. Hence,
Right.
they're very direct, right? We're getting through and going quick. And I think Spanstra is just benefits from the type of unlocking that a possession-based style does. That was her best moments on the team last year,
Yeah.
was when the Current were really, really good at build up and
So they
getting
were
in
trying to be
and
really,
going.
really good at it.
The 3-4 games that
Well,
they
it
were
was
really good at after
again, and
trying for so long.
but also in defense of Alexa, it was the end of her rookie year.
Mhm.
She didn't necessarily shine in the beginning of it, and she
Mhm.
got time, and she was better at the end of the year. She came on very strong. That could be because they were getting more possession. That could be because she was figuring out the pro game better. It could be who was on the field at the time. It could be a lot of factors to that.
I will say
And
she is. I know the production hasn't been there, but she has, for the most part, looked better. But it is the fine. It is the in this offense, you can't make the wrong choices in the final third, and
right.
she made the wrong choices in the final third a little too much.
And I remember telling this story in the first game of the year. Fans like expected Kristen Hamilton to be out there, and they were calling her Hammy because she was playing as well as they remember Hammy playing. So it
Yeah,
was actually a compliment that they were just pigeonholing her to be Hammy at first. All right. Wish Alexa well. The other nice thing in trading her to Portland is they won't face the Current again unless it's in the playoffs. They've already
correct.
played 2 games, so you're not trading them to somebody you'll have to face. Uh, so it's good for her. All right, so there's been rumors out there. I've seen this posted multiple times. Don't know how valid any of them are, but there's been a rumor out there that Lauren was leaving. There's been a couple other rumors out there that Bia was leaving. And I think that one's really crazy. But Lauren was leaving and going to Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's true. I feel like there is fire
There's
behind that
enough.
smoke.
There's enough smoke that there's probably a fire there. She is out of contract and does have I have it on record that she has an option for this year.
Yeah.
I will say the Current don't need to make a corresponding move at the moment to free up international spots. So like for Jericho, right? Jericho requires an international spot. They don't need to move out an international to get her rostered. Right. The NWSL upped the international roster spot opening to 7 this year. So the Current are currently at 7 with everybody on the roster. If they were to make prior continued moves, they would either need to trade for an international slot or one would have to open up on the roster. So I do think, as you said, I think there's smoke where there's fire, right? I don't know how the option totally works, if it's a player option or if it's a mutual option for 2025. The very first rumor that I ever saw of it from the most credible source that put it out there was that they were interested in her as she comes out of contract. So I will say this, like if the current need to, like if for some reason Atletico is willing to pay a transfer fee for her and or pay something now for her, and the Current say, fine, sure, she's not playing over Stina Ebal or Alana Cook at this point.
No.
Then, and she is a player that is certainly deserving of minutes. If we saw what we saw from her in the Olympics, I could see the Current letting the transfer happen. But if they got the right compensation and they had someone to bring in afterwards. So I'll be curious to see what happens there. How much time do we have left in the window? A week, 2 weeks, right?
Till the 30th, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got some time here for
Right.
like things to work out.
And that's the coming in window. So the
Yes.
outgoing window, their windows are different. And so you
Correct.
can send out because their window is open because they're Atletico Madrid is in preseason. So presumably their window will be open until close to the start of their season.
Yeah, because so it's set by the federations. So let me look at La Liga transfer window.
Yeah, I didn't look at I did not look at Spain's transfer window earlier today, but I did verify the women's league transfer window.
So it closes at the women's league transfer window
closes on the 30th for the US.
For the US. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Correct. The NWSL transfer window closes on the 30th. So the Friday, August 30th as well is when La Liga and the European Union's transfer window closes at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. So they have until then to do any outgoing moves.
That requires a transfer of a card, an ITC card. So
an ITC card.
Right.
So yes.
I mean, if they could be in theory, they could cut somebody, they would be out of contract, and then there could still be a move after that, but they would have to be out of contract before the window closed, if I remember
correct. Right. If they do like the mutual agreement, yeah. Yes.
But let's kind of ignore that. I'm pretty sure if they were going to make a move to Madrid or another team, so much of it will depend on whether or not they need a transfer in or not. You know, transfer money. Maybe they let her go on a free, or maybe they let her go for a small amount of money.
Or a sell-on fee, as we've seen other teams in this city do.
Yes. Somebody that's left Kansas City and went back into Europe. So let's just play this out. We think that rumor may be true, whether it's Atletico Madrid or another place that she is going to be moving on. That does open an international spot just in case they're bringing in another player. And I know I feel pretty strongly that there's going to be another player coming. I don't know who, don't know where, don't any of that stuff. At least not.
Yeah, and I'll say this: Vlaco has tended to operate so far, right? Like coaches have different ways of how they want to fill out the roster.
Right.
Sporting KC and Peter Vermees. Peter Vermees always likes to have one or two spots open at the end of the first window, so there's flexibility to add somebody on a free agent move if need be. If there's an issue with an injury, or in the secondary window, they have a little bit more opportunity to do stuff. Vlaco so far has shown me every indication that he wants to have all 26 spots filled at the closing of the window. So let's say, like, I do, if they have a full roster, that means there are going to be multiple moves coming because they currently have 2 open spots out of their 26. And so now I will say this: if Mallory Weber is any sort of close to coming back, that is one roster spot that they will have to keep open, because then they would have to waive somebody to fill that roster spot. I personally think, like, I don't know that, especially, let's just talk on the right back spot. I don't know that anybody has shown that they should be waived out of the right backs between or out of the fullbacks. Like, I like what I've seen from Reagan Steigletter in games. Haley Mace is arguably a flexible fifth center back on the roster.
Either outside back, a center back spot, or a winger.
There's a lot of positions that Haley Mace can play,
right,
in this on
and
a soccer field,
she could be
except for goalkeeper. Yes, but like I don't mean this to be like any way, shape, or form talking bad about Reagan Steigletter, but I think like Reagan is probably the weakest link out of and maybe Ellie probably in the same boat as the weakest links of the fullbacks. And in reality, they're very good players that you don't want to lose. And
I've been really impressed with Ellie lately. I gotta say, because
me too.
She's played well when she's had her opportunities. She plays physical. She's made a lot of those interceptions that I was talking about in the previous segment, and I've been very impressed with her lately. And I'm not saying I'm not impressed with some of the other ones, but very impressed with her.
Yeah, but between the Summer Cup and the Women's Cup, Reagan impressed me as well. So like, I look at some of these deals that they have with these players and stuff like it. To me, it just makes sense that, like, maybe I could see 1 to 2 more additions, and at some point leaving that 20, as much as he won't like it, that 26 roster spot open, just so he doesn't have to cut somebody at the end of the season and risk losing them to go to a playoff team with information about the current and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
To get Mallory Weber rostered, if she ends up being healthy enough to be rostered. I'll be curious. I'll be out at training this week. I will be very happy to see what is happening. With some of those players. They had changed their training times during the summer, and it has made it impossible for me with my day job to get out there very early in the morning for some of these things. Just because I won't get into the details, but it's just very hard for me with my full-time job to get out there. And if you don't know that the writing about the current and talking about the current is not a full-time job, then subscribe so it can be a full-time job one of these days.
Sadly, nobody covering soccer in this city is covering soccer as a full-time job. So
Correct.
Send Sperry some money at the Star, send me some money here at the KC Soccer Journal, and I'll happily write and take more photos. I don't want to beg, but it would make me happy. All right. If we have one more coming in, whether Lauren leaves or not, let's leave it at that. If another player comes in, where do you see that need? Forward, midfield, versatile player? What do you think?
I think Vlaco likes versatility. To me, and especially
every coach likes versatility.
Yes, but especially out of his bench spots. Thad. Here's the thing. The Kansas City Current starting 11 is pretty much set, is it not? I would be shocked if they brought in a player that breaks into the starting 11 in a like benches somebody. Like, I don't know who it would bench at this point. At this point, the only, like, the Almuth benching AD Franch seems like the most likely, and I'm not even sure it happens, but that seems like the most likely of anyone in the starting 11 for it to happen. Like, I feel like Izzy Rodriguez is a very good left back, and she performs her role well. You're not messing too much with a back two of Stina, like Stina, Ebal, and
Alana.
Alana, interchangeable. Haley locked in right back at this moment. So like Hutton, Vanessa DiBernardo. I personally think if any way, like unless Desi like shows she has a lot more minutes to give um in a game, I personally think that actually DM is probably their biggest like area of need because Claire Hutton's going to go to the U18 World Cup,
U20.
U20 World Cup, sorry. I looked at the roster designation on my little cheat sheet over here
Yeah.
and still had her at U18 even though she's graduated out of that.
She's still 18, but she's going to the U20 World Cup.
Yes, but she's out of the U18 entry
Yeah.
program.
Right.
Correct.
She
Now that she
graduated
has
out of
turned
that
18.
like a couple months after she got into it. That was just a good way
Yes.
to get her in.
And avoid the draft. Anyways, Hutton is going to go to the U20 World Cup and she'll be gone for near a month. She'll be gone from August 31st to like almost the third or fourth week of September. I don't know if she will be back for the Orlando City game. So like I think like this is Lola Bonta, Bailey Feist, and Vanessa DiBernardo, or Debinha as the 10 or Jericho in there at some way, shape, or form. I think is a very competent group. But like, let's say Lowe gets hurt. Let's say Bailey, who has an injury history, gets hurt. They got to have somebody fill in there. And if Desi Scott does not have the legs to fill in there, I really think personally, I think midfield is a big circled area of need for this team at the moment, especially because Sophie Braun's gone on loan. Like you don't have that. And I think that's the concern for me there at the moment. I could see them bringing in, I don't know, Vlaco loves forwards, so I could see him bringing in another forward or something like that. But at the same time, like to me, I find the midfield to be a very big need.
Yeah, it was funny back in one of the old FC Casey days. It was like midfielder, 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 midfielder. I'm like, who's going to play defense?
Right? I mean, genuinely, right now, I'm looking at their roster. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 midfielders, and they play with 3 every freaking game.
Yeah.
So, like, for the love of God, Vlaco, go get a midfielder.
It's well, Jericho I think can play in the midfield, obviously.
Well, and okay, I didn't count Debinha as part of the midfield too.
And
But
if you bring Bia in, you got to count Debinha in the midfield, and you still have Leo and Bailey and Dez who can play.
I know, I just think that you have 3 defensive midfielders and you use 2 every single game. You need just one more body there.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a defender that they could pull up for that if need be.
Well,
Not sure.
my personal thought would be Lauren, but like I think Lauren with her ball playing ability and game reading could totally do that. And if Gabrielle Robinson was healthy, could totally do that. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was kind of filling in for that a little bit last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be another forward, and then we'll just have to see what happens from there. Gotta make sure that Claire comes back healthy from the U20 World Cup though.
Big fingers crossed.
Yeah, she's really impressed me this year, and I know we say that pretty much every single time. But it felt like this window, because I mean you mentioned earlier that it takes 2-3 windows to make a team over, usually 3 teams to make a team over in a coach's vision, and I think they've done a lot in this first 2 windows that Vlaco's been here, and I think they've
Mhm.
also done a really good job of. And I can't really like give numbers and all that stuff because I don't have them in front of me, and I don't know if that'd be clear to say any of those numbers if I even said them. But I've just felt like they've done a really good job of clearing out some cap space, working on the cap, making it a little bit better from things that they've had, and I think they're going to continue to do that. And my understanding is players come in have been either zero transfer fee coming in or very little, so they've done really good business with that.
Yeah, they have. I it helps when you don't have to use money or allocation money to uh you got to use it on your roster.
Yeah.
It helps to not have to spend it in other ways just to get the player on the team.
I'm sure that a lot of it, at least some of it, has been the new stadium, the buzz around the team. All of that factor like probably helps attract attention and bring players in easier.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
for
I think
sure.
it's just been some good scouting and some good business done.
Yep.
I don't know, could be the barbecue, but all right.
Ooh. If it was
Anything
the
we've
barbecue, if it was the barbecue, which restaurant would it be that they're selling?
uh well, I think they'd have to sell the one that's a sponsor in their stadium.
It's
True.
a good one. It's a decent one.
It is.
I mean, they're all about their sponsorship, so probably yes.
Yeah, I'm
Oh, speaking about food in the stadium, dude, press box meal. I'm sorry you did not get any, but the press box meal is the best I've had since my very first press box experience, which has ruined the rest of my press box experiences until the other night. Um, the we had hanger steak from Rye, which I don't people don't know what the hanger steak cut is. It's a wonderful cut that
yeah.
is kind of near the skirt steak. Comes within that whole diaphragm area, but it's a very tender side of it, kind of similar to tenderloin and how it comes out, and it is freaking lovely. So very impressed.
I the chefs from there,
Megan and Colby Geralt's.
yes. I don't have time to really dive into this, but one of the best meals I've had in this city was technically leftover food from Blue Stem. They had catered a party, and I got the food that they had packed up to go, and they like brought it back out so I could eat it, and it
Mhm.
was amazingly good. They are some fantastic chefs.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that very first meal I ever had was some wonderful tri-tip from Levi's Stadium, and Levi's Stadium press box food is incredible. It's where the home of the 49ers. I was covered. My very first ever press box experience was USA versus Colombia in the Copa America Centenario, and it was quite good. And it has, and to like go to Sporting and have pizza for like 5 straight years before we got boxed lunches was
That was
brutal.
COVID. That was COVID. Got the box
Well,
lunches.
well, the COVID was the box lunches, but we had pizza for like 4 years straight
Oh,
when I
no, it was
first
longer than
started
that.
joining.
It was longer than
Well,
four
for it was
years.
longer for you. For me, I was only there for 4 years.
I mean, I definitely used to be a pizza a week guy. At least eat pizza once a week, and for like the entire soccer season and about a month after it, I would not eat any other pizzas.
Hmm.
But they, in all due credit, man, they really upped their game lately.
Yeah.
It's been a little inconsistent at both places at times, but they have
Hmm.
both upped the game to be so much better. So it's a good competition now between the two teams in the press box food. I know
Yes.
that's really not important to anybody else, but it helps.
It
I
makes me happier to
I
write
don't
about
often
your
I don't
teams,
often get
good and
that.
bad.
I don't always get it there, but I do wish they
Yes.
would have cold water at the current, but that's another story.
The fridge, it's so hot in there, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It has been very hot the last few games. So,
All right. We have run long. I know nobody really wants to listen to all this stuff about food. However, we should do a pod all about that one day. I appreciate the time, Daniel. I will see you probably tomorrow and the next day and the day after that and whatever. So
yes, I will
appreciate you
see you
coming on,
then.
man.
Thank
Always
you,
good to talk
everybody.
soccer.
Always good to talk soccer with you. Um, Second day in a row that we've stayed up late talking soccer to each other.
Yep.
Also, just thank you, everyone, for listening, liking, and subscribing as you always do. Thanks for the
Yep.
support. We love it. We need it. Thank you very much.
And we are out.